He passed by a maid and then saw her toddler begging on the street. The billionaire couldn't believe his eyes. Marcus Chen had everything a 33-year-old man could want. His tech empire sprawled across 3 continents, his penthouse overlooked Central Park, and his name appeared regularly in Forbes. Yet as he sat in the back of his Mercedes, inching through Manhattan traffic on a drizzly October evening, he felt the familiar emptiness that no amount of success could fill. "Sir, there's an accident ahead. We'll be delayed," his driver announced. Marcus nodded absently, his fingers hovering over his phone. Another email, another deal, another zero added to his net worth. He glanced out the tinted window at the blurred faces of people hurrying along Fifth Avenue, their lives as distant to him as stars in a foreign galaxy. Then he saw her. At first, it was just a flash of recognition. The slight frame, the way she held her shoulders despite the rain soaking through her thin jacket. Marcus leaned forward, his heart suddenly hammering against his ribs. "Stop the car," he commanded. "Sir, we're in traffic." "Stop the car. Now." The Mercedes pulled to the curb, and Marcus stepped out into the rain, ignoring his driver's protests. He stood on the sidewalk, watching as the woman hurried down the street, her head bowed against the wind. It couldn't be her. Maria Rodriguez had worked in his household for only 6 months, 3 years ago, before she disappeared without explanation, leaving only a brief note of resignation. He'd thought about her more than he cared to admit. There had been something different about Maria, a warmth in her smile when she'd bring him coffee during late-night work sessions, an intelligence in her eyes that made him wonder about the life she'd left behind in her native Colombia. But she was his employee, and he was Marcus Chen, and the distance between their worlds had seemed insurmountable. Until the night she'd stayed late, helping him prepare for a crucial presentation. They talked for hours, really talked, about dreams and disappointments, about the weight of family expectations, and the courage it took to start over. For a few precious hours, Marcus hadn't been a billionaire, and Maria hadn't been a maid. They'd just been 2 people seeing each other. But the next morning she was gone. Now, 3 years later, Marcus followed at a distance, his expensive suit growing heavy with rain. Maria turned down a side street, and he quickened his pace, afraid of losing her. Then she stopped abruptly, and Marcus froze. A little girl sat huddled in a doorway, her tiny hand extended toward passers-by. She couldn't have been more than 3 years old, with dark curls plastered to her face and eyes too old for her cherubic features. She wore a thin dress, completely inadequate for the October chill, and clutched a plastic cup with a few coins inside. Maria crouched beside the child, pulling her into a fierce embrace. Marcus couldn't hear what she said, but he saw the girl's face light up, saw the way she burrowed into Maria's arms as if trying to disappear into her mother's warmth. The realization hit him like a physical blow. This was Maria's daughter. Maria's daughter was begging on the streets of Manhattan. Marcus stepped forward, his mind racing. The little girl saw him first, her dark eyes, so heartbreakingly similar to Maria's, widening with fear. She pressed closer to her mother, and Maria's head snapped up. Their eyes met. The color drained from Maria's face. She stood quickly, pulling her daughter behind her in a protective gesture that spoke of hard-learned wariness. For a moment, neither of them moved, 2 statues in the rain while the city rushed by indifferently around them. "Maria," Marcus said, and his voice cracked on her name. She opened her mouth, closed it, then seemed to gather herself. "Mr. Chen." Her voice was different than he remembered, harder, wearier, stripped of the gentle melody he'd once found so soothing. This isn't what it looks like. But it was exactly what it looked like, and they both knew it. "Mommy, I'm cold," the little girl whimpered, and something in Marcus's chest shattered at the sound. Maria's face crumpled for just a second before she rebuilt her walls. "We have to go." She started to turn away, clutching her daughter's hand. "Wait." Marcus stepped forward. "Please, just wait." Let me. He gestured helplessly at the rain, at the child's soaked dress, at the impossible distance between this moment and the last time they'd spoken. Let me help. Maria's laugh was bitter. Help? Like you helped before. The words were a slap. Marcus recoiled. I don't understand. You left. You didn't even say goodbye. I left. Maria's eyes flashed with an anger he'd never seen in her. I left because I had to. Because your mother made it very clear that a pregnant housemaid had no place in the Chin household. Because... She stopped abruptly, her hand flying to her mouth as if she could catch the words and pull them back. But it was too late. The words hung between them, reshaping everything Marcus thought he knew. Pregnant, he whispered. His eyes dropped to the little girl, who was watching him with a mixture of curiosity and distrust. Dark eyes. Dark curls. The shape of her face, the set of her jaw. God, how had he not seen it immediately? No, Maria said quickly. No, Mr. Chin. Isabella is not. But the denial died on her lips, unconvincing even to her own ears. Marcus's legs felt weak. He looked at the child. Isabella really looked at her for the first time. She tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that reminded him of his own reflection. 3 years old. The timeline aligned perfectly with Maria's sudden departure. Mommy? Isabella tugged at her mother's hand. Who is that man? The question hung in the air, waiting for an answer that would change everything. Marcus stood frozen, watching Maria's face cycle through a dozen emotions: fear, defiance, resignation, and something that might have been hope. Isabella, Maria finally said, her voice barely audible above the rain. This is an old friend. But Marcus was already kneeling, oblivious to the dirty sidewalk ruining his $1,000 suit. He was eye level with his daughter, and the world had narrowed to just her small face, her trembling chin, her mother's eyes looking out at him from a stranger's face that was somehow, impossibly, his own. Hello, Isabella, he managed to say. I'm very pleased to meet you. The coffee shop was nearly empty, just a bored barista and a couple absorbed in their laptops. Marcus had ushered Maria and Isabella inside before either could protest, his mind still reeling from the revelation on the street. He'd sent his driver away with a terse text, knowing this conversation would take more than a few minutes. Isabella sat between them in the booth, wrapped in Marcus's suit jacket, which swallowed her tiny frame like a blanket. Maria had ordered her hot chocolate, and the little girl clutched the mug with both hands, occasionally sneaking glances at Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read. She needs to see a doctor, Marcus said abruptly. She's shivering, and that cough. I know what my daughter needs, Maria interrupted, but there was more exhaustion than anger in her voice. She looked different than he remembered, thinner, with shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and constant worry. Her hands, wrapped around her own coffee cup, were red and raw, the nails broken. Working hands. Struggling hands. I'm sorry, Marcus said. I didn't mean, he stopped, frustrated with himself. Every word felt inadequate. Maria, please. Help me understand what happened. My mother said you quit. That you'd found another opportunity. Maria's laugh was hollow. Is that what she told you? She glanced at Isabella, who was focused on her hot chocolate, and lowered her voice. Your mother called me to her study 3 weeks after our night together. She said she'd noticed the signs, the morning sickness I was trying to hide, the way my uniform was getting tighter. She told me that if I wanted to keep my job, I would need to take care of the problem. Marcus felt sick. She asked you to. I refused, of course. I told her I would leave, that you didn't need to know, that I would never ask anything from your family. She seemed satisfied with that. She gave me 2 months' wages and made me sign papers saying I would never contact you or make any claims. I thought, her voice broke slightly, I thought maybe that was for the best. You and I were from different worlds, Marcus. I was a maid. You're Marcus Chin. You were never just a maid to me. Marcus said fiercely. That night we talked, Maria. I felt more myself with you than I'd felt in years. When you disappeared, I looked for you. I called. I went to the address you'd listed on your employment forms, but it was a mail forwarding service. You'd vanished. Because your mother paid me to vanish. Maria's eyes glistened with unshed tears. And because I was ashamed, pregnant, alone in a country where I barely had legal status, with no family and no support system. The money she gave me didn't last long. Not with prenatal care. And then the delivery. I'd been sending most of my wages back to Colombia, to my sick mother. I had nothing saved. Marcus's hands clenched into fists under the table. His mother. Eleanor Chen, with her rigid sense of propriety and her obsession with the family image. He'd always known she was controlling, but this was monstrous. What have you been doing? For work, I mean. He was almost afraid to hear the answer. Maria's eyes dropped to her coffee. Whatever I could find. Day labor, cleaning jobs paid under the table, waitressing when I could get it. My visa expired 8 months after Isabella was born. I couldn't risk applying for renewal, couldn't risk your mother finding out I was still in the country. So, I became invisible. One of the millions living in the shadows. And today? Why was Isabella? He couldn't bring himself to finish the sentence. I lost my last job 3 weeks ago. The restaurant was raided by ICE. I escaped, but I couldn't go back. Our landlord evicted us when I couldn't make rent. We've been staying in a shelter, but there's a wait list, and some nights there's no room. Her voice was flat, reciting facts as if they were happening to someone else. Today I had a job interview. A family in Brooklyn needs a live-in nanny. I thought if I could just get this one job, we'd have a room's stability. But I couldn't take Isabella with me, and I couldn't leave her at the shelter alone. So her voice finally broke. I left her near a police station, where I knew she'd be safe. I told her to wait, that Mommy would be back soon. I was only gone for an hour, Marcus. 1 hour. But when she'd come back, Isabella had wandered half a block away, had sat down in a doorway where someone, some kind stranger or perhaps cruel opportunist, had put a cup in her hands. The image of his daughter, begging for coins while he'd been sitting in his Mercedes complaining about traffic, made Marcus want to scream. Did you get the job? He asked hoarsely. Maria shook her head. They wanted references, a social security number, documentation I don't have. It's always the same. Isabella finished her hot chocolate and looked up at Marcus with her disconcertingly direct gaze. Mommy cries at night, she announced matter-of-factly. But she tries to be quiet so I won't hear. Maria's face crumpled, and this time she couldn't hold back the tears. Bella, baby, you weren't supposed to. It's okay, Mommy. Isabella patted her mother's hand with the grave seriousness only small children could muster. You told me that sometimes people cry because they have too many feelings inside. You're just very full of feelings. Marcus felt his own eyes burning. This little girl, his little girl, had been living in shelters, going hungry, watching her mother break apart piece by piece, and she was comforting her. She was 3 years old and already understood that life was hard, that love meant witnessing pain, and offering comfort anyway. Isabella, he said carefully, would you like to know a secret? The little girl nodded, her eyes wide. I'm very full of feelings right now, too. Meeting you has filled me up with more feelings than I knew I could hold. Are you going to cry? Isabella asked with genuine curiosity. Maybe, Marcus admitted. Would that be okay? She considered this seriously. Mommy says crying is brave. It means you're not hiding. Marcus looked at Maria, who was watching the exchange with an expression of wonder and terror. Your mommy is very wise, he said. Then, to Maria, I'm not hiding anymore either. Not from this, not from my responsibility, not from, he paused, searching for the right words. Not from what I felt for you then, and what I'm feeling now. Marcus, don't. Maria's voice was pleading. Don't say things because you feel guilty or obligated. We've survived this long without. Survived? Marcus repeated incredulously. Maria, your daughter was begging on the street. You're living in a shelter. This isn't surviving. This is barely existing. And it's my fault. No, Maria said firmly. This is not your fault. You didn't know. Your mother made sure of that. But I should have known. I should have tried harder to find you. I should have. He stopped, recognizing the futility of should-haves. Let me fix this. Please. Let me give you both what you should have had from the beginning. Maria's eyes were guarded. What exactly are you offering, Mr. Chin? A check to ease your conscience? A job where I can work for you again while you play the magnanimous billionaire? The bitterness in her voice stung, but he understood it. Trust had to be earned, especially when it had been so thoroughly broken. I'm offering, Marcus said slowly, to be Isabella's father. Really be her father. Not from a distance, not with money alone, but he looked at the little girl who was watching him with those impossibly perceptive eyes. I want to know her. I want her to know me. I want to make up for 3 years of bedtime stories I didn't read and birthday cakes I didn't see her blow out. I want. Mommy, Isabella interrupted. Is he my daddy? The question exploded into the space between them like a grenade. Maria's face went white, then red. Marcus stopped breathing. What made you ask that, baby? Maria asked carefully. He has sad eyes like mine, Isabella said simply. And you look at him the way you look at the pictures. What pictures? Marcus asked. Maria closed her eyes. I kept one photo. From the company holiday party. You were in the background, talking to someone. I told myself I kept it so she'd have something if she ever asked. So she'd know her father wasn't just nobody. Marcus reached across the table, his hand hovering uncertainly before Maria finally, tentatively, placed her hand in his. Her fingers were ice cold. I am somebody, he said, looking between Maria and Isabella. I'm someone who made mistakes. Someone who let the people he cared about down. But I'm also someone who wants a chance to do better. To be better. He squeezed Maria's hand gently. I'm Isabella's father. And if you'll let me, I'd like to start acting like it. The luxury hotel suite Marcus booked for them felt like a palace. Isabella ran from room to room, her eyes wide with wonder, touching the plush furniture as if it might disappear. Maria stood frozen in the doorway, overwhelmed by the sudden shift from sidewalk to silk sheets. It's too much, she whispered. It's not enough, Marcus countered. He'd already arranged for a doctor to come first thing in the morning, had ordered clothes and necessities to be delivered within the hour, had made calls to his lawyer about Isabella's legal status and Maria's immigration situation. Maria, let me do this. Please. She watched Isabella discover the enormous bathtub, squealing with delight. When was the last time her daughter had taken a real bath, with hot water and bubbles? When was the last time either of them had slept in a real bed? Just for tonight, Maria agreed finally. Tomorrow we need to talk. Really talk. About what this means, what you expect, what. Tomorrow, Marcus promised. Tonight, just rest. Both of you. But after Isabella was bathed and tucked into the impossibly soft bed, after Maria showered and changed into the hotel robe, she found Marcus still there, sitting in the suite's living room, staring out at the city lights. You should go home, she said softly. I don't want to miss anything else, he replied. 3 years, Maria. 3 years of her life that I can never get back. Maria sat beside him, careful to maintain distance. She's resilient, stronger than she should have to be. She gets that from you. They sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. Why didn't you try harder to find me? Maria asked finally. Really? Was it because I was just the maid? Marcus turned to look at her, and the raw pain in his eyes took her breath away. I thought you left because you'd seen the real me. The workaholic, The man who lived in his head instead of his heart. The son who couldn't stand up to his mother. I thought, he laughed bitterly. I thought you realized I wasn't worth it. That night we spent talking, I'd let my guard down completely. Told you things I'd never told anyone. And then you were gone, and I figured you'd seen through me and decided to run. Oh, Marcus. Maria's hand found his without thinking. I left because I was terrified. Because I was pregnant and alone, and convinced that you'd see me as a problem to be solved. Your mother confirmed all my fears. She made it clear that someone like me had no place in your world. My mother, Marcus said, and his voice was cold in a way Maria had never heard, is about to learn some very hard lessons about what happens when you hurt my family. The word family hung between them, fragile and precious. What are you going to do? Maria asked. First, I'm going to make sure you and Isabella have everything you need. Safety, stability, healthcare, legal status, all of it. Then, I'm going to have a conversation with my mother. She'll be removed from any position of authority in my life and my company. And then, he turned to fully face Maria, his expression uncertain in a way that made him look younger. Then I'm going to ask you what you want. Not what you think you should want, not what's practical or sensible. What you really want. Maria's throat tightened. I want Isabella to be safe. To grow up without fear, without cold nights and empty stomachs. I want her to have opportunities, education, a chance at the life I dreamed of when I came to this country. And for yourself? Marcus pressed. What do you want for Maria? She looked down at their joined hands. When had they started holding hands? I want to not be afraid anymore. I want to sleep through the night without jerking awake, convinced IC is breaking down the door. I want to. She stopped, the truth too terrifying to speak. Say it, Marcus urged gently. I want to know if that night meant something to you. Or if I built it up in my head during 3 years of struggling alone, turned it into something more than it was. The words tumbled out in a rush. Because it meant something to me, Marcus. You saw me, really saw me, not as a maid or an immigrant or anything but Maria. And I saw you, the man behind the billions and the reputation. And I fell in love with that man, even though I knew it was hopeless. The confession hung in the air. Maria waited for him to let go of her hand, to gently establish the boundaries between employer and employee, billionaire and single mother, between his world and hers. Instead, Marcus raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. It meant everything, he said. You meant everything. When you left, I threw myself into work because it was the only thing that didn't remind me of you. But you were everywhere, in every cup of coffee, every late night at the office, every moment I let my guard down. I told myself to move on, that it was just one night, just a moment. But I couldn't. I didn't want to. Marcus. I'm not saying we can just pick up where we left off, he continued quickly. 3 years is a long time. We're different people now. You have Isabella to think about, and I have to earn the right to be part of her life. But I want to try. If you'll let me, I want to try. Before Maria could respond, a small voice came from the bedroom doorway. Mommy? I can't sleep. Isabella stood there in her new pajamas, clutching the stuffed rabbit that had been included in the clothing delivery. She looked so small, so vulnerable. Come here, baby. Maria opened her arms, and Isabella ran to her, climbing into her lap. The bed is too big, Isabella complained. And too quiet. I miss the shelter sounds. Maria's heart broke a little. Her daughter had grown so accustomed to hardship that comfort felt wrong. Marcus knelt in front of them, putting himself at Isabella's eye level. When I was your age, he said, I had a bed that felt too big too. My father traveled a lot for business, and my mother believed children should be independent. I used to lie awake at night, feeling very small and very alone. Isabella studied him, seriously. What did you do? I imagined stories. Adventures where I was brave and strong and never alone. Would you like me to tell you one of those stories? Isabella nodded, her thumb finding its way to her mouth. Marcus glanced at Maria, who nodded permission. Together, they moved to the bedroom. Maria lay down with Isabella between them, and Marcus began to weave a tale of a brave little girl who could talk to stars and a lost prince who needed help finding his way home. His voice was soft, gentle, nothing like the commanding tone he used in boardrooms. Isabella's eyes grew heavy, and she reached out, grabbing Marcus's finger with her tiny hand. "You're warm," she murmured sleepily. "Warm like Mommy." Marcus's voice caught, but he continued the story until Isabella's breathing evened out in sleep. Only then did he look across his daughter's sleeping form to meet Maria's eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For keeping her. For raising her. For being strong enough for both of us when I didn't even know I needed to be strong." A tear rolled down his cheek. "For giving me a daughter who holds on to people, even in her sleep." Maria felt her own tears falling. She's always been a fighter. From the moment she was born, she fought. I used to think she was fighting for survival. But maybe she was fighting to get to this moment. To find you. They stayed like that for a long time, keeping vigil over their sleeping daughter, two people from different worlds connected by the tiny hand that refused to let go. The confrontation with Eleanor Chun happened in Marcus's penthouse office, with the morning sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Marcus had arranged for Maria and Isabella to be taken shopping with his assistant, both because they needed clothes and because he didn't want Isabella to witness what was about to happen. His mother arrived precisely on time, as always. Eleanor Chun was a striking woman in her 60s, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant chignon, wearing a Chanel suit that probably cost more than Maria had earned in a year as a maid. She walked into the office with the confidence of someone who'd never been denied anything. "Marcus, darling, this is unusual. You never ask for morning meetings." She air-kissed his cheeks, her perfume, expensive, floral, making his stomach turn. "I hope nothing's wrong with the Taipei expansion. Your father and I." "Sit down, Mother." Marcus's voice was ice. Eleanor's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. "Excuse me?"
"Sit down."
Something in his tone must have penetrated because Eleanor sat, her posture still perfect, but wariness creeping into her eyes. "Marcus, what is this about?" "Maria Rodriguez." He watched her face carefully. To her credit, Eleanor's expression barely flickered, but he saw the recognition, the brief tightening around her eyes. "The housemaid? Goodness, that was years ago. Why on earth would you?" "My daughter was begging on the streets yesterday." Marcus's voice was deadly quiet. "My 3-year-old daughter, whose existence you hid from me, was sitting in a doorway in the rain, asking strangers for money while her mother desperately searched for work. Work she couldn't get because you paid her to disappear and made sure she had no papers, no references, no way to survive." The color drained from Eleanor's face. "Marcus, you don't understand." "Then explain it to me." He leaned forward. "Explain to me how my mother, the woman who taught me about family honor and responsibility, paid off a pregnant woman and threatened her into silence. Explain to me how you looked at Maria, a woman who worked hard, who was kind and intelligent and good, and decided she was disposable. Explain to me how you've slept at night for 3 years knowing your granddaughter was living in poverty." "She trapped you." Eleanor burst out, her composure cracking. "Don't you see? A housemaid, Marcus, from Colombia, probably here illegally, sees an opportunity to get her hooks into a billionaire and—" "Stop." Marcus's command was sharp enough to make his mother flinch. "Maria didn't trap anyone. I'm the one who pursued her. I'm the one who insisted we talk that night. I'm the one who—" He stopped, taking a breath. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that you knew she was pregnant with your grandchild, and you threw her away like trash. I was protecting you," Eleanor insisted, her voice rising. "Your reputation, your future." The merger with the Zhang family was still in negotiation. If it had gotten out that you'd gotten a maid pregnant. I don't care about the Zhang merger. I don't care about reputation. I care that my daughter spent her first 3 years in shelters and doorways instead of in a nursery with her name painted on the wall. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. You're being emotional. That child, if she's even yours, is standing right outside that door, Marcus finished, and he had the satisfaction of watching his mother go pale. That's right. Maria and Isabella are here. And yes, she's mine. One look at her, mother, and there's no doubt. She has the Chun eyes, the Chun stubbornness. She's brilliant and brave and stronger than any child should have to be. He stood, walking to the window. I'm not asking for your blessing or your approval. I'm informing you of the new reality. Maria and Isabella are my family now. They will be protected, provided for, and welcomed. If you cannot accept that with grace and genuine remorse, then you will have no place in any of our lives. You can't be serious. Eleanor's voice shook. Marcus, I'm your mother. You can't just cut me out. Watch me. He turned back to face her. For 3 years, I've let you run my personal life. You vetted my dates, planned my social calendar, told me what was appropriate and what wasn't. I let you do it because after Dad died, I thought you needed the purpose. I thought I was being a good son. But good sons don't let their mothers hurt innocent people. Eleanor stood abruptly. She's turned you against me. That woman has manipulated you into. Maria has done nothing but survive the hell you put her through. Marcus's voice could have cut glass. Do you want to know what she told me when I found them? She said it wasn't my fault. She defended you, said you were just protecting your son. Even after everything you did to her, Maria tried to shield me from hating my own mother. That finally seemed to break through. Eleanor sank back into her chair, her perfect composure crumbling. I thought I was doing the right thing, she whispered. Your father built this empire from nothing. I watched him sacrifice everything to give you opportunities, to make the Chun name mean something. The idea of scandal, of some opportunistic woman destroying everything. Maria isn't opportunistic. She asked for nothing. She signed your papers, took your money, and disappeared because she thought it was best for everyone. She's been doing whatever work she could find, under the table, while undocumented and terrified, all to keep our daughter safe and fed. If anyone has honor in this situation, Mother, it's Maria. The room fell silent except for the muted sounds of traffic far below. Eleanor looked smaller somehow, her expensive suit unable to hide the fact that she was just a frightened woman who'd made terrible choices. I want to meet her, Eleanor said finally. My granddaughter.
No.
The word was flat, final. Marcus, please. I made mistakes, but she's my blood, She's not your blood, Mother. She's my daughter. And until you can prove, really prove, that you understand what you did and that you're genuinely sorry, you don't get access to her. He moved to his desk, pulling out a folder. I've had my lawyers draw up papers. You're being removed as an officer of Chun Industries. You'll retain your shares and your dividends, but you'll have no operational authority. Additionally, I'm setting up a foundation in Isabella's name to help undocumented mothers and their children. The initial funding will be $50 million, from your personal trust, not mine. Eleanor gasped. You can't. I can, and I will. Consider it restitution. Maria deserves far more, but she's too kind to ask. He slid the papers across the desk. You have until end of business today to sign. If you refuse, I'll have the board remove you entirely, and I'll make sure everyone knows why. His mother stared at him, as if seeing him for the first time. When did you become so hard? When I realized that being soft, being compliant, being the good son cost my daughter 3 years of the life she deserved. He softened slightly. I don't want to lose you, Mother. But I will if that's what it takes to protect them. Make your choice. Eleanor stood slowly, moving to the window. For a long moment, She just looked out at the city she'd conquered through marriage and willpower. I was 17 when I came to America, she said quietly. Did you know that? My parents sent me to live with relatives, to have a better life. I worked as a seamstress, saved every penny. When I met your father, I was waiting tables at a restaurant. He was just starting his company, working 20-hour days. People said I married him for money, but there was no money.
Not yet.
They said I was opportunistic. A gold digger. Marcus moved closer, seeing his mother's reflection in the glass. I think, Eleanor continued, her voice breaking, when I saw Maria, young and pregnant and vulnerable, I saw myself. And I was terrified. Terrified that she would face what I faced, that people would say the same cruel things. So I tried to protect you from the scandal, tried to protect her from the judgment. But I didn't protect anyone, did I? I just repeated the cruelty that was shown to me. She turned, tears streaming down her face, her perfect makeup finally ruined. I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, terribly sorry. Marcus wanted to stay angry, wanted to hold onto his righteous fury. But looking at his mother, really looking at her, he saw the young immigrant girl who'd fought for every scrap of respect, who'd armored herself in Chanel and cold efficiency because vulnerability was dangerous. I believe you, he said quietly. But sorry isn't enough. You have to prove it. To Maria, to Isabella, to me. Eleanor nodded, wiping her eyes.
How?
Sign the papers. Fund the foundation. And then give me time. Give us all time. If and when Maria is ready, we'll talk about you meeting Isabella. But on Maria's terms, Mother. Not yours, not mine. The woman you tried to erase gets to decide if she'll let you be part of our lives. His mother moved to the desk, picking up the pen with shaking hands. As she signed, Marcus saw how much this cost her. Not the money, but the admission of wrongdoing, the surrender of control. I'll do better, Eleanor whispered. I'll be better. I hope so, Marcus replied. Because that little girl outside deserves grandparents who love her, not ones who see her as a mistake to be managed. After Eleanor left, Marcus stood alone in his office, feeling both triumphant and exhausted. He'd stood up to his mother, had drawn boundaries he should have drawn years ago. But the victory felt hollow, incomplete. The real work wasn't in punishing Eleanor, it was in building something new with Maria and Isabella. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. We're back. Isabella says she picked out a dress she thinks you'll like. Maria is crying in the fitting room, but says she's okay. Marcus smiled despite everything. His family was waiting for him. His strange, unexpected, perfect family. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of boundaries and tentative steps forward. Marcus had moved Maria and Isabella into a secure apartment in a good neighborhood, not his penthouse, because Maria insisted on maintaining some independence, but close enough that he could be there in minutes. He'd hired an immigration attorney who assured them that Isabella's situation could be resolved, that Maria's path to legal status existed, though it would take time and patience. But the legal issues were the easy part. The harder work was figuring out how to be a family when they'd never learned the steps. Marcus arrived at their apartment every morning before work, bringing coffee for Maria and a small treat for Isabella. A book, a toy, a flower from the bodega downstairs. He'd stay for breakfast, helping Isabella eat her cereal while Maria showered, soaking up every moment of ordinary parenthood he'd missed. You don't have to do this, Maria told him one morning, watching him wipe milk from Isabella's chin with practiced ease. You have a company to run. The company can wait, Marcus replied. She won't be 3 forever. Isabella, sensing she was being discussed, looked up with her spoon dripping milk. Daddy's staying for breakfast, she announced with satisfaction. She'd started calling him Daddy the second week, as naturally as if she'd been doing it her whole life. The first time she'd said it, Marcus had excused himself to the bathroom and cried like a child. Now, he helped her down from her chair and watched as she ran to get ready for the pre-K program he'd enrolled her in, a school that didn't bat an eye at her complex documentation situation once they saw the Chin name on the application. "How are you doing with all this?" Marcus asked Maria once they were alone. "Really?" Maria busied herself, clearing the table. "It's a lot. Going from nothing to everything almost overnight. I keep waiting for it to disappear, for someone to say there was a mistake." Marcus caught her hand, stilling her nervous movements. "It's not going to disappear. I'm not going to disappear." "People say that," Maria said softly. "People make promises all the time." "I'm not people. I'm Isabella's father. And he paused, searching for the right words. "I'm someone who's been given a second chance at something real. I'm not going to waste it." "What are we, Marcus?" The question burst out as if she'd been holding it back for weeks. "To you, I mean, are we a responsibility? Your obligation? Some kind of redemption project?" He pulled her closer until they were standing face to face in the morning light. "You're the woman I couldn't forget. The one who made me laugh that night, who called me out when I was being pretentious, who saw through all my defenses and liked what she found anyway. You're Isabella's mother, yes, and that makes you precious beyond measure. But you're also Maria, the woman I fell for 3 years ago, the woman I'm falling for again, right now, every single day." "Marcus." "I'm not asking you to feel the same way," he said quickly. "I know I have to earn that. I know you've been through hell because of me, because of my family. But I need you to know that this is an obligation. This is..." He struggled to find words for feelings he'd spent 3 years trying to deny. "This is me trying to build something real with you, if you'll let me." Before Maria could respond, Isabella came running back, her backpack on inside out, and her shoes on the wrong feet. "I'm ready." The moment broke, but not the connection. Maria's eyes held a promise. "We'll talk about this." Later that day, Marcus took Isabella to Central Park while Maria had a meeting with the immigration lawyer. It was a crisp November afternoon, and Isabella was bundled in a new coat, her cheeks pink with cold and excitement. "Push me higher," she demanded from the swing. Marcus complied, marveling at how fearless she was. This child who'd known hunger and uncertainty approached life with aggressive joy, as if making up for lost time. "Daddy, look." She pointed at a man selling balloons. "Can I have one?" The casual way she said, "Daddy," still made his heart stutter. "Of course." Isabella picked a red balloon, then surprised him by asking, "Can we get one for Mommy too?" "Your mommy doesn't need a balloon, sweet pea. But she's sad sometimes," Isabella explained with the blunt honesty of childhood. "When she thinks I'm not looking, a balloon might help." Marcus knelt beside her. "You're right. What color do you think she'd like?" "Yellow," Isabella decided immediately. "Like sunshine. To make the sad go away." They bought the yellow balloon, and as they walked back to the apartment, Isabella holding both balloons, Marcus felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just about making amends or doing the right thing. This was about building a life, a real life, with these two people who'd somehow become his entire world in a matter of weeks. When they arrived home, Maria was already back, looking exhausted but relieved. "The lawyer says we have a strong case," she reported. "For both of us. It's going to take time, but we're going to be legal." Isabella interrupted, not fully understanding but sensing it was good news. Maria laughed, scooping her daughter up. "Yes, baby. We're going to be okay." "We got you a balloon," Isabella announced, "to make your sad go away." Maria's eyes filled with tears as she took the yellow balloon. "It's perfect. Thank you, baby." "Daddy helped," Isabella added generously. Maria met Marcus's eyes over their daughter's head, and something wordless passed between them. Gratitude, hope, the beginning of something that might, with time and care, become love again. That evening, after Isabella was in bed, Marcus and Maria sat in the small living room, both nursing glasses of wine. "I've been thinking," Maria began hesitantly, "about what you said this morning, about falling for me again." Marcus tensed, preparing for rejection. I need you to understand something, Maria continued. 3 years ago, I was young and naive and so lonely. When you paid attention to me, really saw me, it felt like a miracle. And yes, I fell in love with you. But then everything fell apart, and I had to become someone else. Someone harder, someone who could survive. The Maria you knew doesn't really exist anymore. I know, Marcus said. I'm not the same either. Success looks different when you've realized you've failed at the things that matter most. Maria smiled sadly. So maybe we're meeting for the first time. Marcus and Maria, version 2.0. I'd like to get to know her, Marcus said. The Maria who raised Isabella alone, who fought for every moment of her daughter's happiness. The Maria who's learning to trust again. It's going to take time. I have time. I have trust issues, Maria warned. I have control issues. I talk to myself when I'm stressed. I reorganize the refrigerator at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep. They both laughed, the tension breaking. This is crazy, Maria said. A month ago, I was homeless. Now I'm drinking wine with a billionaire while our daughter sleeps in a bedroom that's bigger than some apartments I've lived in. Is it too much? Too fast? Marcus asked, suddenly worried. I can slow down, give you more space. No, Maria interrupted. It's not too much. It's just different. Good different, but still strange. I keep waiting for the catch, for the moment you realize this is too complicated and you want out. Marcus set down his wine and took both her hands. Maria, listen to me. I know I have to prove myself. That words aren't enough. But I'm not going anywhere. Not when things get hard, not when Isabella has tantrums, not when the legal process drags on, not when I'm difficult? Maria offered. When you're honest, Marcus corrected. Being difficult is just being honest about your feelings. I'll take difficult over polite silence any day. Maria searched his face, looking for cracks in his sincerity. Okay, she said finally. Okay, let's try this. Version 2.0 of whatever we are. Whatever we are, Marcus agreed, raising his wine glass. They clinked glasses, and in that small gesture was the promise of something new, not a fairy tale, not a dramatic rescue, but something more valuable, a real chance at building something together. Christmas came with the first real snow of the season. Marcus had asked Maria what Isabella wanted for the holidays, expecting a list of expensive toys. Instead, Maria had said simply, she wants to make cookies with us. Both of us. Together. So they found themselves in the apartment kitchen on Christmas Eve, flour dusting every surface, Isabella standing on a chair between them, her tongue poking out in concentration as she pressed cookie cutters into dough. This one's a star, she announced. Like the stars Daddy told me about in his story. Marcus had been telling Isabella's stories every night, elaborate tales that she listened to with rapt attention. She'd started adding to them, her imagination wild and wonderful. And this one's a heart, Isabella continued. For Mommy. What about one for Daddy? Maria asked, nudging Marcus playfully with her hip. The casual touch was new, part of the gradual thawing between them. They'd been on several dates. Real dates, just the two of them, while a trusted babysitter stayed with Isabella. They'd talked for hours, sharing the details of the years they'd missed, learning each other again. The attraction was still there, simmering beneath every conversation, but they were taking it slowly, building foundation before passion. Daddy gets the angel, Isabella decided. Because he found us. Marcus had to turn away, pretending to check the oven while he blinked back tears. Even after months, these moments still overwhelmed him. The casual inclusion, the evidence of his daughter's love, the miracle of being wanted. Daddy cries a lot, Isabella observed to her mother. That's because Daddy feels things very deeply, Maria explained, her voice warm. It's one of his best qualities. Marcus turned back, composure regained, to find both his girls watching him with matching expressions of affection and amusement. I do feel things deeply, he admitted, moving back to the counter. Especially where you two are concerned. They finished the cookies and put them in the oven, then settled on the couch to wait, Isabella wedged between them. She'd just started a new book about a girl who could fly, and she insisted Marcus read it, his voice bringing the words to life. Halfway through the third chapter, Isabella fell asleep, her head on Marcus's chest, her hand holding Maria's. They sat in comfortable silence, neither wanting to disturb the moment. I have something to tell you, Maria said quietly. Marcus's heart jumped. Good something or bad something? Good. Maybe. I hope. She took a deep breath. The lawyer called yesterday. My case has been approved. I'm getting my papers. Real papers. I'm going to be legal. Maria, that's amazing. Marcus wanted to shout but kept his voice low for Isabella's sake. Why didn't you tell me right away? Because I needed to process it first. For 3 years, I've been invisible, illegal, afraid. And now, her voice cracked. Now I'm going to be real. I can get a real job, have a real life. I can stop looking over my shoulder. Marcus carefully shifted Isabella so he could put his arm around Maria, pulling her close. You've always been real. You've always been seen. At least by me. I know. But this is different. This is official. This is, she laughed through her tears. This is freedom. We should celebrate.
Properly.
Dinner, champagne, anything you want. I want this, Maria said, gesturing at their sleeping daughter, the messy kitchen, the lights on the small Christmas tree they'd decorated together. I want normal. I want ordinary. I want Sunday mornings and bedtime stories and cookies on Christmas Eve. You have it, Marcus promised. You'll always have it. Maria turned to look at him, her eyes serious. Marcus, I need to say something, and I need you to let me finish. He nodded, suddenly nervous. When we met again, I was angry, bitter. Part of me wanted to hate you, to blame you for everything that went wrong. It was easier than admitting that I ran, that I let fear control me, that I signed those papers without fighting back. She paused, gathering her words. But watching you these past few months, seeing how you are with Isabella, how patient you've been with me, I've realized something. We both made mistakes. You trusted your mother, I trusted my fear. But we both also made the right choice when it mattered most. What choice? Marcus asked. You didn't walk away when you found us. You could have written a check, set up a trust fund, maintained polite distance. But you chose to stay, to show up, to be uncomfortable and uncertain and present. And she smiled. I chose to let you, to trust again, even though I was terrified. We both chose love over fear. I'm choosing it every day, Marcus said. Every morning when I come here, instead of going straight to the office. Every story I tell, every diaper I change. Yes, I've learned to change diapers, he added at her surprised expression. Every moment I spend being her father and he paused. What am I to you, Maria? She reached up, touching his face gently. You're Marcus. The man I loved 3 years ago. The man I'm loving now more every day. The man I want to keep choosing, if he'll keep choosing me. The kiss was soft, careful, mindful of the sleeping child between them. But it held promise of more kisses, of more moments, of a future they'd build together. I'm selling the penthouse, Marcus said when they pulled apart. Maria blinked. What? It's too much space for one person, and it never felt like home anyway. He looked around the small, cozy apartment. I want to find a place for us. All of us.
If you want that too.
Something that's ours. Not mine or yours, but ours. Marcus, I can't let you. It's not letting me do anything. I want a home, Maria. I want to come back at the end of the day to people who love me, not to empty rooms and silence. I want Isabella to have a yard to play in, a dog maybe, a place to grow up where she feels safe and wanted. He hesitated. And I want you, not as my employee or my obligation or my charity case, as my partner,
My equal.
my... If you're about to propose, Marcus Chen, you'd better think carefully, Maria interrupted, but she was smiling. Because I've spent 3 years being powerless, and if, when we take that step, it needs to be because we're ready, not because you're trying to fix everything with a grand gesture. Noted, Marcus said, grinning. No proposals tonight, but someday? Someday, Maria agreed. When we're both sure. When we've built something strong enough to last. When Isabella is old enough to be the flower girl and give her opinion on my dress. They laughed together, and Isabella stirred, mumbling something about cookies before settling back to sleep. The timer dinged, and they carefully extracted themselves to rescue the cookies. They decorated them together in the warm kitchen, occasionally stealing kisses when Isabella wasn't watching from the couch where she'd woken up. Later, after Isabella was in bed with visions of Santa dancing in her head, Marcus prepared to leave. He'd been staying late more often, but he still kept his own place, respecting Maria's need for independence and space. Wait, Maria said as he reached for his coat. Stay. Tonight. Not, she blushed. Not for anything except being here. I don't want to wake up alone on Christmas morning. Neither does Isabella. Marcus's heart swelled. Are you sure? I'm sure. We're sure. She took his hand.
Stay.
Be here when she wakes up and sees what Santa brought. Be here for pancakes and chaos and all the ordinary magic of Christmas morning. Be here, Marcus. Just be here. So he stayed, sleeping on the couch under a borrowed blanket, waking to the sound of small feet pattering across the floor in the pre-dawn light. Daddy. Isabella's whisper was loud with excitement. Daddy, wake up. Santa came. He opened his eyes to find her face inches from his, her eyes sparkling with joy and wonder. He did? What did he bring? I don't know. I waited for you. She grabbed his hand, tugging insistently. We have to see together. And wake Mommy. Together, they tiptoed to Maria's room. She was already awake, sitting up in bed with a soft smile. Merry Christmas, she said. Merry Christmas, Mommy. Come on, come on, come on. They gathered in the living room, and Isabella tore into the modest pile of presents. Books, art supplies, a new coat she needed, practical things dressed up in festive paper. But she treated each one like treasure, gasping with delight at every reveal. The last gift was small, wrapped simply. It was addressed to Isabella, but inside was a framed photo. Marcus, Maria, and Isabella at the park, taken by a passerby who'd agreed to snap the picture. They looked like a family. They looked happy. For your room, Marcus explained. So, you can remember this time when we first started being us. Isabella hugged the frame, then hugged Marcus, then Maria, pulling them all together in a three-way embrace that was clumsy and perfect. Best Christmas ever, she declared. Over her head, Marcus and Maria's eyes met. They'd come so far from that rainy night when he'd found them on the street, from fear and shame and separation to this, a family choosing each other every day, building love from broken pieces. Best Christmas ever, Maria echoed softly. Marcus silently agreed. He'd been a billionaire for years, had everything money could buy. But nothing, not the penthouse or the private jets or the zeros in his bank account, compared to this moment. His daughter's arms around his neck. The woman he loved smiling at him over their child's head. The promise of more mornings like this, more ordinary miracles, more chances to be the man they needed him to be. He'd spent 3 years living half a life, never knowing what he was missing. Now he knew, and he was never letting go. Outside, snow began to fall again, covering the city in white. Inside, a new family sat together by the glow of Christmas lights, eating cookies for breakfast and telling stories, writing their own happy ending one ordinary, extraordinary moment at a time. The end. Sometimes love finds us when we least expect it. Sometimes families are built from broken pieces. And sometimes the greatest gift we can give is the courage to show up day after day, choosing love over fear, presence over perfection, and each other over everything else.